What's going on here? Haven't you heard? We've got t-shirts. It's a heather gray heavyweight crewneck t-shirt featuring our signature phrase, "Looks pretty good," printed on the left chest and the logo on the back. Made in America and screen printed here in Maine. I guarantee it's going to look pretty good. I'm Tom Johnson, Thomas Johnson Antique Furniture Restoration in Gorham, Maine. This is a teak table, mid-century modern. What's interesting about this table is that it's solid teak, 100% solid teak. The tabletop, of course, the leaves, the legs, the apron, the secondary support pieces, and even the rails that attach to the tops and make up the sliding extension set. This table was built in 1966 in Denmark, purchased by the family when they were stationed in Germany. It was part of an entire set. For the owner, this table represents memories of family meals for over 20 years, where family council meetings were held, decisions were made, and of course many evenings of homework. For him, this table represents the object that brought the family together at the end of each day. During shipment and years of storage, this table has suffered a bit, but it's actually held up pretty well considering all the use it got. And now, it's time to bring it back to life. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to take these rails off the tops, and then I've got to glue up the end that's broken off here, and there's a couple of cracks I've got to work some glue into. So this is going to go back together pretty well. I don't think there's any pieces of wood missing. There's some cracked pieces here. But I've got to get rid of this blackness. This blackness, which I assume is from liquids getting down into that crack before it finally broke apart completely. I'm going to try using some lacquer thinner and a brush. I don't want to use any water-based product on this because I don't want the wood to swell. So we'll give this a try. So I tried scrubbing with lacquer thinner, didn't seem to have any effect. I tried my heat gun on the other piece here, that also seemed to have no effect, so I think I'm left with just scraping. All right, that didn't take nearly as long as I thought it would. Seemed pretty daunting at first. Okay, so now I'm going to set up on the bench here and do a dry run of clamping it up. Okay, off camera, I glued it up, I clamped it up dry, so here goes. I'm a little out of alignment right here. It's not level. And this is where that big cracked sliver was underneath. Okay, I think that's going to do it. We'll let it dry overnight and see what we got in the morning. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, this came out really well. Now I got to do the other half. See this board, well, where this joint is, it's still hanging on with some shards of wood, so I don't really want to separate it if I don't have to. Actually, there's only one shard holding it together, so I think I can separate that, and that way I can really clean this. Yeah, there's a few nasty splinters here, but I think I can live with that. It's better to clean this. This is cleaning up really well. I didn't think it was really necessary to show more scraping. This should be a straightforward glue up. In fact, I don't think I'm going to have to use those deep-throated clamps trying to make it level. This is a little bit better condition. So I'm going to clamp it up the same way. This went together like a breeze. That's good. Okay, get these clamps off. See how it went? And then I've got glue ups on the apron. What I've seen so far on this apron assembly is that there's only two places that need repair, and one is this split rail here. And at the other end is this big chunk of wood here, which has been broken off. The good news is that the pieces were saved. I haven't checked yet to see how they fit, but it looks good. My guess is that somebody moved this table while it was fully assembled, and maybe they dropped it, or who knows, but it seems pretty strange. Let's see. Oh, it's a good fit. There's a little piece of wood missing on the top corner of this part. And we also have the metal guide that fits in there, which guides those rails that support the top. Luckily I have a nice piece of teak here. Still going to be a little tricky figuring out how best to do that. I've let this dry for a few hours, so let's see if I can trim it up and get the next piece glued on. That looks good. It's time to prepare these tops for sanding and refinishing. This leaf, you get a good sense of what the original finish might have been like. It looks like an oil finish. And the tabletops themselves, the two halves that got the heaviest use, the finish is like worn off. And of course an oil finish may look beautiful at first, but unless you re-oil it on a regular basis, it will deteriorate. And in 50 years of refinishing furniture, I've only met 2 people who actually re-oiled their dining room tables, and they look great. But if you don't, it has a tendency to wear off like this top and get rings in it, like on this leaf. The good news is that with an oil finish, especially an old one like this, it's pretty easy to remove. You don't need to use solvents. You can use something like Dawn detergent, but that needs to be rinsed. And so I'm going to use TSP, trisodium phosphate, which doesn't need to be rinsed. The directions call for a 1/4 cup of TSP. In the US, that's a volume measure. And so I weighed it out, and it's 50 grams, along with 1 gallon of hot water, and that's 3.7 liters. Just hot tap water. Oh, and I'm using these 3M Scotch-Brite pads, the maroon, to scrub with. Well, I've done the initial washing of the 2 tops. I think I better change out the water. Everything washed down pretty well, but before I start sanding, and I'll talk about that, I realized I've got to repair some of these screw holes in the bottom of this section. We had already guessed that at some point in the moving and storage process, this table had been dropped or something, and this rail in particular had been ripped off. You can see here how we're missing a piece of wood, and this wood's lifted. This one, you can see both sides here are lifted up where the screw was forcefully pulled out. Luckily all the wood's there. So I'll just work some glue into these areas and clamp them flat, and that should do it. Where the wood is missing, I'll probably just epoxy that. So yeah, I'm sanding this top. I'm going to give it a good sanding. Let's talk about that. Anyone who watches my videos know that I like to really keep sanding to an absolute minimum. And this is most important on sentimental pieces that are period antiques from the 19th and 18th century. When we get into the 20th century here, starting with like Art Deco and then on up into mid-century modern, it's different. People don't want to see all the scars and road rash of the years. They're more like cars and automobiles. They need to look good, look new. And on this top especially, he had some serious issues with the color. After I cleaned the finish off with Dawn, it looked nice and clean, but very, very bleached out. I started sanding, and it was very quickly coming back to the original color of the wood. Using my color check card here, I think it's easier to see the difference between what I found and here where I've just begun sanding. And also when I cleaned down the leaves, there was a huge difference. The leaves were a lot darker than the rest of the table. You can see that here. This is a leaf. This is the table even after my preliminary sanding here. But I grabbed the second leaf here and just started sanding it, and it's very quickly coming back to the same color as the main tabletop. So it feels pretty good that the leaves and the table are going to come together color-wise. And you'll see I'm using a Stir pneumatic sander, straight line sander, double pad. Stir made these sanders. So did National Detroit. This one's got smaller pads on it that I use. These are great sanders. They don't make them anymore. I have no idea why. They're made primarily for the finishing industry. Of course, you can sand with them too. I like sanding with the same sander I'm going to use when I'm finishing the tabletop. So I have no idea what people do now that they don't make these anymore. You can get them on eBay, and but they do use a lot of air. You need at least like 12 CFMs to run one of these sanders, and a good sized tank on your compressor. I'm using 100 grit paper, and then I'll go over it with 150. I just want to show you a couple of the issues I'm dealing with here. I got some scratches and also some dents. I've got this one particular kind of wicked scratch or abrasion. I've got to sand that out. And I've got a bad dent right there. My first inclination was to grab the putty, but I think I'll put a little wet rag on it, see if I can, the moisture can bring it up. As far as these scratches go, I don't mind, but I won't concentrate on that one scratch. I want to take this whole thing down. It'll be kind of a gauge. I really need to make sure this gets back to the original natural color, and I sort of can't tell. If I sand it down to where that scratch is out, I know I'm there. So back to this dent. I wet down a little piece of rag in the sink, and I'll put that there. In fact, I'll put a drop of water right on it. And then as I go on working on other parts of the table during the day, if I notice that's a little dry, I'll come back and put a drop of water on it. There's a huge dent on the edge of the table here. I don't have much hope for that, but I've got time, so I might as well try that too. Get a little water on it. I doubt that it's ever going to swell all the way back to its original shape, but might get something out of it. I mean, you can apply steam to these too. You know, touch a hot iron to there where the rag is. But I've got so much other work to do, I take a passive approach because it works most of the time. I can still try steaming it later if I think it's going to help. I'm sanding the bottoms of the entire tabletop and the leaves too. I'm going to be finishing the bottoms the same amount of finish I put on the tops. I'm hoping you can really see the difference between the side that hasn't been sanded and the side that's been sanded. Okay, I've finished sanding the tabletop, tops and bottoms. I've just let them sit here for a few hours. I'm letting the dust settle, and now I'm going to put a coat on the bottom. I'm going to finish the bottoms first. And I'm going to be using the Waterlox varnish. Well, I hope the top looks as good as the bottom here. It's chilly in the shop tonight. I've got the heat up, but I got a fan on. Maybe in a few hours I'll be able to turn the fan off, and we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. Okay, it dried really well. Looks good. It soaked in quite a bit. I'm going to give it another coat, and I'm going to go over it first with a Scotch-Brite gray pad, just to knock the nits off of it. All right, I'm going to apply the second coat. I'm not going to do it on camera. I got plenty of coats to go. It's just like last night. All right, it's been about 22 hours since I put this coat on. I kept the heat up pretty high last night in the shop here, and they look great. They feel great. I think I can flip them over and put the first coat on the top. I've got a few spots with putty that I want to touch up before this first coat. This is an area I tried to wet with that rag, but it didn't really come up. It came up some, but I ultimately had to fill it. And I'll be using these Mohawk brush tip graining marker, Honey Spice, to do this. Hope it's not too dark. I might wipe this off with a little alcohol. It's hard to tell when I don't have any finish on. Well, I just won't really know until I get some finish on here. There's that big dent in the side. Could use a bigger marker for this. Yeah, we'll see what it looks like when I get some finish on it. All right, here's another little spot of putty. I think I got the other side of it. And you notice these are drips from, when I did the other side, the finish kind of came around there. I'm not worried about those at this point. I'm going to get a coat on and then sand this a bit. All right, it looks good. I was worried about the color difference between the leaves and the top. Doesn't look bad. We'll see what it looks like tomorrow, but it's going to be pretty much soaked in by tomorrow. Okay, it's the next evening, a little over 24 hours since I put this first coat on, and it just soaked up completely into nothing. So I'm just going to put on another coat, and we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. Okay, I'm sanding up the apron and legs. The coat I put on last night went down really well. Table looks good. It didn't all dry and shrink in, and I'm going to let it dry, and maybe this evening or maybe tomorrow I'm going to sand it and put what I hope is the final coat on the table and the leaves. In the meantime, I'm sanding the apron and the legs. The apron's in good shape. It's just sanding right up. The legs are a different story, especially on the outside corner of the legs. They're really, really beat up, and they're requiring a lot of sanding. And let me sand this a little bit. I think you'll be able to see better. Yeah, you can see all the scarring and beading. Some of this I've been able to get out with a little water, and others I've just had to sand it away. So I've just got to keep sanding away here, and hopefully today I'll get a first coat on the legs and the apron and get the third coat on the top. See, dents like this one, I might just have to fill in with Famawood putty. These might sand out. And you can see as I sand, all the dents become apparent. Actually, I've already sanded out. A bunch of these came right out. Some of them won't come out. Some of them are too shallow to be filled, but yet they won't sand out. And that's okay. I'll fill the ones that I can fill and sand out the ones that I can sand, and the others can stay. Okay, I decided to wait on another day before I recoat this table. I noticed as I was working yesterday, during the day as I was working, the finish was still shrinking up and the grain was becoming, much more prominent, even some places where it soaked in more than I thought it was. So I'm glad I left it, but I'm going to sand it now and give it, I hope, is the final coat. So I'm just sanding by hand. It sands really well, and I'm using 320 free cut paper. I'm hoping you can see here the texture, and not just the texture. The surface is rough. It's just dust and stuff that's landed in it, and I think you can see those little bumps. So the first step is I take the sandpaper, and it smooths off pretty quickly. And after this just first quick pass, I think you can really see, I'm hoping you can really see all the little bumps. Okay, so that just took maybe 3 or 4 passes with the sandpaper. I wipe it off a bit, see what I got, and then I take the gray Scotch-Brite pad and I go over it. And that really seems to like even out the strokes from the sandpaper. And because I'm sanding section by section, when I go over them with the Scotch-Brite pad, it brings the sections together, makes them really even. All right, I've got the whole table sanded now and gray padded. The last step before I apply finish, I'm going to wipe it down with this Mohawk wax wash remover. It's kind of like it's a proprietary paint thinner of some sort, but it really does a good job of getting any contaminants off. Now, up to this point, I've been using, Waterlox Original. This is a semi-gloss finish, so it's got a little bit of shine to it. But for the final coat, I'm sticking with the Waterlox, but this is a satin finish, so it'll have a much lower sheen. I'm also going to use a foam brush. Not my favorite, but I like the way it smooths this stuff out. Okay, wow, this coat looks great. It's only been 15 hours since I've put a coat on. It looks great. It's a very, very nice mellow sheen. And the thing about this finish is, as it dries, even over the next 24 hours, the sheen will even reduce a little bit. And it actually takes about 6 months to fully achieve the soft glow. Okay, while the top's drying, I've got to go over these legs with a little bit of 320 very quickly, look for any spots that need a little color, and then give them their final coat. Okay, the apron, the legs look great. The top's been drying for about 36 to 40 hours. I'm going to assemble the table. First thing I want to do is go over these legs with 4-0 steel wool and some feed and wax polish. And you also don't want to over tighten these. You don't want to rip that bolt right out of the leg. So nice and firm. No need to go crazy. So, you can see here the number 1. Here's the number 1. And so that 1 covers up that 1. It goes just like this. Seeing over here you've got number 2 and number 2. See, I'm having a little bit of difficulty locating this one. There it is. And see, this is why I left those others loose. I can actually get under here a little bit. I can see the hole. Got the scratch all. There we go. Definitely got it. See, the hole through this rail is elongated, and that's to allow for wood movement. But it makes it, but now you got to go down there and find where the screw hole is. There's a lot of leeway there. I think I have it, but I'll peek under there, see if I can see it. It's down here somewhere. I may go back and loosen the other screws a little bit, just so I can lift that up. So I loosened the other screws just a bit, and now I can see in there, and I can see that screw hole, and there you go, lined up. Still got to find it again with the screw, but at least I know I'm in the right area here. Okay, good. Okay, slides attached. Now I'm going to use some paste wax and wax up these rails all the way along and the inside too. Now note these holes in the rails. After the tabletop is installed, we're going to climb underneath and put these dowels in there. they're the stops, so that the table can't, you don't accidentally pull the tabletop out all the way. They're very snug. Now I'm also going to wax these guides and these slots where those rails fit in. Even this little metal guide. Definitely a two-person job. I may have to get some help just to get these lined up. There we go. Great. I'm so glad to have brought this table back to life, and I think it looks pretty good. These are the clamps I used for gluing up the top. These are the tools and materials I used for finishing. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe, like, share it. I'd appreciate it.